Yeah, hi. My name is Snehpal Singh, and I'm a corporate trainer based out of Vaishali, district Ghaziabad. It's part of Delhi NCR. I'm into training for past about 17 odd years, and prior to that, I was into sales for over a decade. Having a cross industry experience of over 28 years, I've actually become an enabler of enablers, and I have been touching many lives. By now, I have touched over 30,000 lives with several thousand hours. Sure, that's a wonderful question. In fact, when we say this particular term called as quiet hiring, there are two more terms I think which is very important to quote, and that is about the quiet quitting, then the quiet hiring, and also the quiet firing. Last summer, when this word quiet quitting actually originated, that was about the employees, those who felt the need for work-life balance and started doing something which is doing the bare minimum at the workplace. That was a kind of revolt by the employees to have that. And quiet hiring is exactly opposite of that, whereby people are expected to go beyond and above the call of duty, not just in terms of the duty which they are currently playing, but also in terms of any new role which is coming up, for which any organization has got a choice to take people from the external. Now, this is about prioritizing people internally rather than externally. And I think it is a wonderful step. It has to be looked at from a positive perspective because this gives leveraging of the existing resources. This gives option to increase the productivity because obviously the costing is going to be lower and people actually get a lot of opportunity for development, and that is internally. They start seeing this as an opportunity for growth, which otherwise would have given to somebody who is coming from the external side. So I think it is very valued, and when you say that people go above and beyond when they feel valued is 100% true. It's not just the monetary part which is important, but I think it's about that sense of accomplishment, sense of belonging, this sense of getting valued that matters a lot. That's a wonderful question. In fact, that also takes me to a very simple शायरी, and I will say that कुछ सपनों को पूरा करने निकले थे घर से, किसको पता था कि घर टाइम पे जाना ही एक सपना बन जाएगा. You know, long time back, while I was in sales and then I was in training, I used to have this dream of having 5 days a week. I never could get that opportunity until I landed up in the head office at Bangalore. And incidentally, when I landed up in Bangalore, I didn't have my family with me. My family was still there in Delhi, and that was a 5-day week. So what will I do with that 5 days? So actually, I started spending more than 6 days because I have nobody to go back to. And I actually thought it, what wonderful facility people are enjoying. That's a 5-day week, and people are not talking about even lesser than that. I think pandemic has changed a lot, and that has actually led people to start thinking about these things. My answer to this is that how do people balance is very simple. You can't say that there is one single format which is going to suit everyone. For sure, one size does not fit all. People have got different needs. There are people, those who have, people at home, those who need caregiving. They would need something different. Now, when you say that these percentages of 12.7% full-time employees, 28.2% of people working from hybrid, that totals to around 40%, which means still there are 60% people, those who might be saying the same shairi which I quoted, those who have never tasted those flavors in life. And if they get this opportunity, I'm sure they are going to value this much more. It's, I think, also important to look at beyond the hours. When we call out flexibility, it is not just about the location, whether it is work from home or work from office or roster duties, but also the hours. Even if you're working from home, there can be certain people, those who are more productive at the night time. Somebody might be more productive in the morning. The wee hours, say 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. types, in case you are catering to such kind of work which doesn't have that customer interface to be present at a certain time. I think that flexibility, autonomy is going to work wonders. Obviously, you will have to have the governance mechanism around it because वो हिंदी में एक कहावत है, नजर हटी दुर्घटना घटी. that risk is always there. I think we need to balance that. And from the employee side, I would say that इंसान की फितरत ही कुछ ऐसी है, ना मिले तो सब्र नहीं और मिल जाए तो कद्र नहीं. जब तक नहीं मिली थी तब तक ऐसा लगता था कि यार मिल जाए किसी तरीके से, आज मिल गई है तो उसकी कद्र नहीं है. People have become more demanding to the extent people are going for the interviews and asking very clearly, yeah, I need this kind of facility. So it has actually become more of a perk now. I think it should be more used for the productivity. I think my answer would again be revolving around the same idea that one size definitely doesn't fit all. If you talk about 4-day week, what does that exactly mean? If you call a day of 8 hours or 9 hours and you multiply that by 6 hours, you will actually get a certain number of hours per week. So 50 hours or 60 hours, what people are talking about. If you actually compress that into 4 days, it actually becomes a compressed work week. What does that mean? Obviously, on one side, you might actually have an improved work-life balance, because once people have left from home, even if it is taking 1 hour or 1.5 hours, and while coming back, if you are actually stretching beyond a certain working hours, you might face actually lesser traffic. So for example, I reside at Vaishali, Ghaziabad, and if I go to Gurgaon, that's nothing less than 1.5 hours in the morning, nothing less than 2 hours in the evening. And there are people, those I'm particularly aware of, they actually travel beyond those hours, even if the requirement is not such, just so that they can avoid that traffic, the peak traffic. I think from that perspective, they might get the validation there, and at least they don't have to leave anything beyond 4 days. It may work for a lot of people, but then yes, every coin has two sides. I think the drawbacks also should be looked into. One is the extended work day. For sure, if you have extended work day, it may be challenging for people to meet certain personal commitments, certain family commitments. You might actually find yourself into a loop whereby it can lead to a potential burnout for some people. It is also said by a lot of people that the productive hours in a day is usually about 4 hours, cutting across all the other hours, the break hours. A lunch hour of an hour or so, and then 2 tea breaks and all that, putting aside that, the actual productive is around 4 hours. I don't know to what extent we can actually increase by doing that with 4 days. And every country is very different. India as such is such a diverse culture. It's very, very difficult. I think we can't compete. And for that, I would like to say one thing here. ना किसी से ईर्ष्या, ना किसी से होड़, मेरी अपनी मंजिलें, मेरी अपनी दौड़. We can't compete with any country. We have our very typical requirements. I also cater to some plants, so they have to be there in the plant. They have a 6-day week. They will have to do that. There are people, those who need the shift duties. You can't really change that. Beyond a certain hours in the shift, you actually might become unproductive. Say for example, if you talk about these people, those who are driving the Ola cabs, the Uber cabs, there are people, those who are working and not working. They are actually slogging themselves. They are driving for not 12 hours, but 15 hours, 16 hours. I have seen people, even in Bangalore, I've seen, they slog themselves. But eventually what happens? The well-known fact that people, the accidents, they're happening, people relate that it is because of the, drink. It is more because of you lose your balance, you lose your sight, you have that sleep that is coming in. That's the major reason why that is happening, because you are stretching yourself. You have actually come to a burnout situation. It may not be very productive, but it all depends. Experiments should be done without any competition, without any comparison. So that's my take. I think that's a very valid question, and just calls a lot of attention there. When we talk about these two terms, performance and productivity, I have seen that usually there is a lot of lack of clarity around this particular topic. Allow me to share my screen, and I would like to take an example so that I can actually talk about this. So let's take there are two different teams. there are two different teams which I'm talking about. So there is a team A and there is a team B. You have a target for team A. See, let us say it is a target of 1,000 pieces, and same target is there for team B. If the team A is achieving say 1,200, their percentage is coming out to be 120%. Now that's what you call as performance. You call performance as a comparison of what the target was and what is the achievement. It's a relative term. And similarly, if you have team B, which is also doing say 1,200, the performance is 120%. Now the performance of team A and team B both are same, but does it mean the productivity is also going to remain same? Now let me also tell you, both of these teams, they had 12 people initially. Both of these teams had 12 people initially. The team size was 12. But over a period of time, what happened? Team B lost 2 people. And they are currently having the people, those who are only 10 compared to team A. And they are managing with this 10. These 12 people are able to contribute 1,200 and these 10 people are contributing 1,200. Now you look into the productivity. You will have to actually now see whatever the achievement is there by the team size, which is 12. You come to a productivity of 100 per resource. And in this case, if you see 1,200 divided by 10 people. So 1,200 divided by 10 people would be 120 per resource. Now that's the difference. Though apparently it may look that team A and team B have got equal performance, but the productivity is higher in case of B. It's not just stopping there. It goes actually even beyond. What does it mean? Each resource also might have different productivity. When you look at each of these resources, you might actually have a difference in terms of their working hours. We just saw that it is 100 or 120. What does it mean? If you divide 100 divided by 8 hours, you will have a certain productivity which is coming out. So what is that? 100 divided by 8, you will have a productivity of 12.5. On the contrary, if you see 120, the productivity of team B, this was for the team A, this was for the team B, and you have the same 8 hours. So 120 divided by 8, the productivity is coming out to be 15. Now what is this? It is 12.5 per hour. It is 15 per hour. That means apparently it may look like that the performance is equal in both the cases, but the productivity might actually vary. And ultimately it is dropping down to the extent of hours. That's exactly what there's a concept of time office. What they do. What an employee typically does. We all sell time to the extent we have available. But as a business person, you actually start leveraging their time. You deploy the resources, you engage people, you make a team out of it. So there is a limit to beyond which we can't sell time. So time office is actually calculating those hours and calculating accordingly this money. So productivity, I think, is far more important than the performance. If you take care of productivity, the performance will automatically be taken care. So that's my take. And how do you do that? Obviously, you will have to bring in more awareness around this concept of productivity. You will also have to go to the extent of redefining the KRAs, which is currently all oriented towards the performance, not on the productivity. I think it's very important that we should start defining the metrics very clearly. By awareness, it will have a focus which will shift on the productivity and less on the subjectivity, plus goal setting. Still, there are a lot of people, those who lack clarity on the goal and role. These are a couple of things I would strongly recommend that should be done so that we are able to achieve higher productivity. That's my take. I think it's a very wonderful question, and let me give you one answer for sure, that there is no clear answer. Particularly while this is evolving, I had this discussion with one of the advocates and we were talking about this. What comes first? Is it the technology or the law? We had this discussion. It was a discussion a couple of years back when this cryptocurrency was on the rising trend. And it clearly emerged that it is always the technology that will come first, then the law or the regulation. It will never happen the other way. You will never know what is going to come. You actually kind of try to keep pace with what is coming around. Nobody is prepared. AI has come all of a sudden, and people, those who are supposed to be framing laws, regulations, they are still trying to understand it. Leave aside even trying to think about how to regulate that. Same is the concept of cryptocurrency. Still, they have not been able to do that. I think the cyber criminals, they are far, far more faster than the people, those who are actually preventing those, crime. That way is AI to me, I think it's a blessing in disguise. That's for sure. I would look at it as a strategic advisor, a virtual mentor, a learning guide, an instant helper. Something which you can click the button and it is available at your help. Whether to leverage that or not is a complete matter of choice. But that also reminds me of my childhood. We all have watched this serial whereby there was a genie. जब आप चिराग को कसते हो, उसके बाद जीनी आता है सामने और बोलता है क्या हुक्म है मेरे आका. And AI seems to be like that genie, which says your wish is my command. Your wish is my command. That's the way actually it is doing it. Now it depends how clearly you are able to articulate your wish. That's what there is a technical term called as prompt. Now to be able to use that prompt that wisely also needs a lot of awareness, education, training around it. And it is actually working a lot. I think people are able to improve the productivity for a simple reason. We just saw in the last question that in terms of productivity, it boils down to productivity per hour. Earlier per resource and then per hour. What does it mean? If you are able to achieve more in less, it means you are more productive. What in less? It is in less time. If I have to create something and it is taking me 8 hours, and if an AI helps me to do that in say 8 minutes, I'm going to save a lot of time. It may not be that creative, but a lot of clerical thing which can be done by AI, which otherwise we will keep on investing our time, can be saved. It can actually be used a lot in terms of data analytics to give a lot of insights. Yes, in terms of ethical implications, when you call about it, there are concerns related to privacy. But my question is again the same. If we talk about privacy, it is exactly opposite of whatever we are doing in terms of the artificial intelligence. When you use these applications such as Zomato or Swiggy or even in bank, my bank ATM, he actually remembers me. वो मुझसे पूछता है कि स्नेपाल सर कैसे हो, कौन सा वाला ट्रांजैक्शन, वही आपका वाला, मेरा वाला कौन सा, मुझे पहचानता है because when I withdraw, I put a figure of 900. I don't put 1000. I put a figure of 1900. I don't put a figure of 2000. And there is a reason why I do that. Because I will not get a bigger note. I will actually get in denominations. So that's and it knows. How does that know? Because we are sharing our information. That is how the AI is working. AI is actually working on the appetite of that information which is being shared. I think the shared information is again another concept. Blockchain is working on that. Blockchain has got a shared open architecture. You can't actually keep hiding things. Obviously, you will have to be particular about maintaining the biases and fairness. AI also can be subjective at times. It can be little generalized at times. You will have to see how do you have the data ownership, how do you have the algorithms in place to have the accountability, how do you bring your people to the reskilling and job displacement, because sooner or later people will realize that यार काश मैं सीख लेता, तो otherwise वो late हो जाएगा. And over a period of time, I'm sure some kind of regulatory compliances also may come. So yes, we need to strike a balance between having the productivity and some of the ethical implications as well. my one very simple suggestion would be focus on improving, not proving. It's a very, very simple difference. Usually, what happens is that whenever somebody is new into the system, the first and foremost thing which comes is let me prove myself. We all have been proving ourselves since our childhood. नई नौकरी होती है, you have more of pressure of proving yourself. नया रोल है, you start proving yourself. And there is no end to that. You can't prove yourself to each and everybody. Now tomorrow you have been doing something in the current role but your supervisor has changed. Again the same thing starts. You start proving, yes, I am doing something. So instead of having that focus on proving yourself, I would say just put I am. Start focusing on the improvement. So if you do that, you may not be even aware to what extent things are going to change. So that's, I would say that focus on improving. And again, the same thing that it's not about the competition. नहीं किसी से ईर्ष्या, नहीं किसी से होड़. मेरी अपनी मंजिलें, मेरी अपनी दौड़. Don't compete with anybody else. Compete with yourself. When I say improvement, look at concepts which are like Kaizen, which is a slow and continuous improvement. You keep on doing that. I'm sure you would be aware of a 1% rule. Of late, I was sharing that in a training program with a pharma logistics company. This 1% rule is so beautiful. If you just improve 1% every day, you are 37 times better at the end of the year. Look at the power of that. Instead of competing with other people and only focusing on proving yourself. So that's my message to the youngsters. Sooner or later, they will realize this. I think for managers, it is very, very important to have empathy at the first place. क्योंकि सास भी कभी बहू थी. ये लोग भी कभी उसी पोजीशन में थे. As soon as the role changes, I don't know what happens to these guys, the first time managers. They actually forget that they were also in the same place. They don't understand the kind of apprehensions which these people will actually have. And there is a lot of delimiting thought which can actually have. Now, one of the limiting thought which is there is, ये मेरा काम नहीं. This is not my job. How does it happen? When you have a lack of clarity about the role which you have, if you don't have a concept such as, quite hiring, which actually gives you the opportunity to go the extra mile. So you have this delimiting thought that tomorrow it may become your job, which you are currently saying, it is not my job, because if you have this concept of quiet, and you know that company might leverage me as a resource, it can actually become a delimiting thought. Now, who can bring in this delimiting thought? Are these managers. Very important. They need to focus on not just managing, but also leading from the front. And obviously, leadership is something which is slightly even beyond. There are times when both the things might have overlap, but it is about inspiring people to action, the right action at the right time. Giving them the space, giving them the psychological safety to express themselves, to check out in what ways they can contribute. Once you have done the goal setting for people, you have gained commitment from people, I think there is no point that you need to have some kind of micromanagement and be apprehensive that अगर मैंने उसको नहीं देखा तो वो काम नहीं करेगा. It will not happen like that. How does this productivity is happening in those countries which you are talking about? Which actually means they have these mechanisms in place and people are having more of accountability. Now, as leaders, are we in a position to take that responsibility, that accountability, that ownership? I think the first and foremost, they should inculcate this sense of ownership in everybody. If I think they are able to have this, create that psychological safety, would be fantastic. One very important piece which I would like to say here is feedback. Most of the leaders, I have personally questioned them, interviewed them, asked them, do you take feedbacks? And to my amaze, very, very few people take feedback, particularly from their juniors, from their peers. Why they do that? I don't know why. Because I think their focus is not on improvement. If the focus is on improvement, you will obviously take the feedback. And people don't give feedback for a very simple reason, because if I were to give feedback to somebody, I might have two different apprehensions. कि बुरा लग गया तो, और दूसरा भला हो गया तो. अगर मेरा ऊपर वाला है, सीनियर है, तो मेरे मन में यही आएगा यार बुरा लग जाएगा, लेट मी नॉट से दैट. और कोई साथ वाला है तो भाई उसका भला ना हो जाए. अपने जूनियर्स के साथ भी then it is not feedback, it is actually something different. The words change. The feed and back actually keeps changing in that position. You don't even be mindful of how you are conversing with your people. This is actually quite undervalued. This particular word, which is feedback, is quite undervalued. I think we must start taking this as important, because when you mentor people, those who are junior to you, there can always be reverse mentoring which can happen. You may not be very strong in terms of technology. Your juniors can tell you something which you don't know, and otherwise you may never know. I learned something about Excel sheet a couple of years back from my junior, from my MIS coordinator, when I was handling the two different zones. And that worked so beautifully well for me that today even people, those who are somewhere else in the world, they remember me because of my Excel skills, which I actually learned from those people. I think it's very important to keep that psychological safety space that people are able to come, experiment, learn, grow. And lastly, two words, growth and development. It may look similar, but they are not. For me, growth is about getting bigger. And for me, development is about getting better. The question here is it only about getting bigger or about getting better? And if you don't get better, if you don't develop yourself, you don't get better, you might actually get better. The choice का matter है कि आप better बनना चाहते हैं या better बनना चाहते हैं. And if you are focusing on the development, whether through quiet hiring or you do whatever as a part of culture, I'm sure you will automatically grow. Grow करने का opportunity हो सकता है साल में एक बार आए, but development can happen every day. If you apply that 1% rule every day, if you do that, I think it will work wonders. We will be a part of the most elite nations with us. I think it is about a matter of culture that we start taking the benefit of feedback. And we need to train a people a lot about feedback. We need to create a lot of awareness around this feedback, because feedback is not that easy. Feedback is not about telling people that this is what you ought to do. That's not feedback. Feedback, obviously, to me, is a part of both science and art. Why science? Because there are certain steps which you need to do. What does that mean? That means if I am having a role play in my training sessions, and obviously towards the end there is going to be a feedback. But typically, everybody knows that there is a standard way of giving feedback. Everybody knows that. And because they know that, they don't even volunteer to come forward. What I do, I create an environment of psychological safety right in the starting. Do that expectation setting. We are going to have this role play, and nobody is going to say anything which is on the constructive side, on the negative side, on the area of improvement. They are only going to share what is positive in this. And only the people, those who are actually doing the role play, will be authorized to share if they feel any area of improvement. And I've done that. And there are people to whom, when I'm asking this question, they straight away come with, "Sir, उसने ये नहीं किया, उसने वो नहीं किया." मैंने कहा, "Sorry, I said only positive." It becomes so difficult. Out of those, say 20-25 people, 8 or 7-8 people, they're able to share positive. Rest have to keep quiet. They can't say anything. And when I ask this question, the person who's actually done that role play from the sales side or from the leader side, do you see that is there a scope of improvement? Let me tell you, he exactly shares what otherwise others would have shared. What is there in my mind? Barring maybe one odd thing, he shares that. 80% he has already done that. I'm supposed to only bridge 20%. It has come now. Without even being direct to somebody, you are able to do that. Now, it requires a lot of art also. So to me, it is a scientific art. Feedback is not easy. Feedback is very, very tough. We are not able to do that even with our children. In parenting also, this is required. So you have to be quite a patient listener to somebody. You will have to give that psychological space, safety space, so that people are opening up with you. You practice any technique. For example, one of the technique which is there is about that SBI, the situation, behavior, and impact. It is not about telling somebody that what you are supposed to do. Sharing a situation, this is what the situation was, and asking that person, facilitating the conversation, what was expected. He will share himself. Sir, I was supposed to share the report by 10 a.m. Okay, so what happened? He will tell, sir, I was late. Late means what? Sir, it was at 11:30 that I shared the report. He is sharing himself. Now, I don't have to force him to admit something. He has already agreed that I was 90 minutes late in sharing my report. Okay, do you feel that there is any consequences to that, any impact of that? Oh, yes, sir. The work got delayed and we were able to submit a collated report and all that. So, anything expected, anything which you will do differently from onwards? You just facilitate those conversations. People are ready to come up with exactly what they want. As soon as you direct people that this is what you are supposed to do, आगे से मत करना. अभी आगे से मत करना is a very generalized response. Immediately you are putting people to the shell. You are forcing them to become defensive. That's one of the biggest limiting factor to feedback. You will have to open up that shell. People should be able to come up. If you actually ask me feedback, we can actually run an entire day program only on this piece, the feedback, with a lot of practice around it, not just as a concept. I think we can do wonders if we actually start focusing on this element.